This video is an accompaniment to my blog article, Easy Mini M&M Confetti Cookies. The easy part comes from using half a box of Pillsbury Confetti cake mix and a chocolate cake mix of another brand. The reason why I wanted to have a hybrid kind of cookie is because I've seen recipes where they talk about using mini M&Ms. Mine is different by having half chocolate and half white cake mix, but also with some jimmies sprinkled in. The good thing about these particular chocolate cookies is that the cake mix is already part chocolate and the decorations are mini M&Ms instead of chocolate chips. The implements you need are a small mixing bowl, a large mixing bowl, a pastry blender, 1 tablespoon measuring spoon, a measuring cup, a rubber spatula, a baking pan, a cooling rack, and a cookie spatula. You need 1/3 cup of oil, 2 eggs, half a box of chocolate cake mix, half a box of Pillsbury Confetti cake mix, and about half a package or about a cup of the mini M&Ms, which you add later. If you want to substitute for the Confetti cake mix, you can use white or yellow cake mix and add 1 tablespoon of jimmies for the recipe. I've mixed the eggs and the oil in a smaller mixing bowl using the pastry blender. In the larger bowl, I measured half of each of the cake mixes and stirred the powders together. The mini M&Ms are there for reference. I will be measuring out about half the bag. Pour the oil and egg mixture into the powders and use the pastry blender to mix it all together. The batter will be quite thick. The mini M&Ms weigh about just under 11 ounces. I'm going to measure about half of the bag. I've seen some recipes that call for about 1 1/4 cups, so I'll just go ahead and pour 1 cup to see how that comes out. I decided to be a little bit more scientific about the amount of mini M&Ms that I would put in. So I measured the bag that I had leftover M&Ms in and discovered they only came to 4 ounces, so I poured some of them back into the bag. If you want to only put in half a bag, weigh a little bit more than 5 ounces. Before spooning the cookies, turn the oven on to 325. Scoop some dough into the tablespoon, flatten with the spatula, and dump onto the cookie pan. You can use an ice cream scoop for making bigger cookies if you want. I tend to like to use portion-controlled small ones. These chocolatey cookies are good because they won't be melting in the summertime. The M&M shells keep the chocolate from melting, and Using a mixture of chocolate cake mix gives it more of a milk chocolate flavor. Bake at 325 degrees for about 12 minutes. So let the cookies cool for a couple of minutes and then put them on a cooling rack. When lifting the cookies out of the pan, make sure to use an oven mitt or oven pad. Gently use the cookie spatula to scoop the cookie itself. There's usually enough oil in the recipe so that they lift out without sticking. Looks like they turned out pretty well. Sometimes they can be questionable because chocolate cookies are hard to tell whether they're brown enough or not. This is how the first batch turned out. I wound up baking the cookies for about just under 12 minutes. Your mileage may vary. I'm going to go ahead and scoop the rest of the cookie dough onto this pan for the second batch. We'll see how many I wind up with total. Alrighty then, managed to get 14 cookie pieces onto this last batch. So a total of 41 cookies. Just a shade under 3½ dozen. I'll go ahead and bake these. My baking time was close to 12 minutes for the first batch, so I'll go ahead and bake these for the same amount of time. For this batch, I actually overlooked letting the cookies sit for a couple of minutes. You can actually go ahead and start scooping them out right away. Not all cookies are as easy to flip out as these are. I'm going to dish up a few of the earlier cookies, break one open and see what it looks like on the inside. Well, I guess they don't really have a lot of decorations on the inside. Quite chocolatey. Yeah, if you want to experiment with this recipe, what you can do is just use more white cake mix. Skip the chocolate cake mix and add more jimmies. Maybe add more of the mini M&Ms.